Welcome to InFocus, a podcast about contemporary photography. I'm your host, Lyla McBrearty, and I'm joined by Rob Percy, a talented photographer who specialises in product and portrait photography with some great storytelling behind your work. Rob is also the owner of Studio 88, a creative studio that supports visual artists and creative projects. How are you?
I'm all great. I'm all right, thanks.
Yeah, cool.
Thanks for inviting me on.
You're more than welcome. Thanks for coming on. Let's get into it then.
Okay.
How did you start photography? How did you get into it?
I got into photography through college.
Okay.
So I came out of school after A-levels knowing I wanted to be in a creative industry, but not knowing which one. So I went and did an art foundation course. So a year-long course, trying a bit of everything: graphic design, photography, art, painting, sculpture, all these different bits, and just to try and work out where I fitted.
Yeah.
And I got to dark rooms. I went, yeah, this is a bit of me. It's I was a student. I was 18. They were dark and warm, and I could sleep. But also, I got hold of different cameras, medium formats, 35mm, 5.4s, and nice. That excited me. So yeah, specialised for the second half of that year, and then went off to Reading. Yeah. And did their photography and digital imaging course as an HND. Did that for 2 years.
Interesting. It's called digital.
Well, it was right at the beginning of digital. So it was very much focused on, at the time, we all shot film.
Yeah.
And then everything we were going to use was scanned and then went to Photoshop. So it was like we didn't have digital cameras at the time, but everything we were shooting for was going to end up in a Mac to be edited. And it was a bit of a forward-thinking course. And this is what, 1999? Yeah. 99, 2000. I left in the summer of 2001. I got my first gig as an assistant in the December of 2001. And it was because I'd done all the digital stuff that got me that job. Yeah. So I'd gone to work for guys who were shooting film and didn't really know digital, but they knew it was coming. So they brought in assistants who understood it, so that they were just backing themselves up. They were getting themselves ready for the transition to digital.
That's really smart.
And within 18 months of my first job as an assistant, my first freelance gig, the studios I was working for had all gone completely digital. Film had died 100% within 18 months of we probably should get on this. Yeah. Yeah. So it was a huge, very, very quick transition. And that's how I got into it. It was not, it was just, I found it at college, followed that through the courses, and just got into assisting and working for other photographers.
Was it ever at a point when you started, was it more of a hobby or just full on?
It was a career choice at the age of 18.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So what are you kind of currently working on now, if there's anything you could spill the beans about?
You've caught me on a really quiet period. So I've just come off the back of probably 5 or 6 months of really busy work, working for a real range of clients. So you assisted me on a job for Hypnos Beds. Yeah. Building room sets and shooting product for them. We wrapped that job at the end of December, delivered that by the end of January. Okay. Then off the back of that, I went into a food shoot for a holiday park company, shooting their menu for the spring and summer this year.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, that was good fun. I love that sort of stuff.
Nice.
And then straight off of that one, I went into a 6-day shoot for private healthcare, shooting, running around hospitals in West London, private hospitals in West London, shooting nurse and sort of nurses interactions, doctor and nurse interactions. So the
Yeah.
idea is recruitment imagery. So these guys are going to take these images, we're building a bank of images, and they all go off and they'll turn these into adverts for recruitment. So like, come and work for I can't tell you the brand. Yeah, oops. Yeah, come work for this company. We pay better than the NHS, that sort of thing.
Oh, right.
And how much fun you'll have working for this company.
Yeah.
So it's all meant to be like friendly interaction between staff members, between doctors and nurses, between nurses, different types of nurses, different levels. So they can target different, whenever they come to do recruitment, they can target different people. So we covered all the different areas, so radiology, general nursing, maternity. We did everything from porters up to consultants. And it's all, just 6 days of doing that. I think we shot something like 10,000 frames over 6 days.
That's crazy. Was there like any kind of health and safety with that, or?
No. It's photography. It was possibly the worst possible job for health and safety. So we do our best to try and mitigate any dangerous situations.
Yeah.
But there's usually a trailing cable somewhere. We took because we were going to be on the fly and we didn't know what the situation we were going to be walking into. We took one light, actually that one that we're using right now, which it was powerful enough. I didn't have to use flash because I didn't know if I was going to be working with if there was going to be nurses involved, whether the patients, babies. So we couldn't. We had to be a little bit considerate about the types of lights that we were using. I didn't have enough space to drop lighting stands all over the place, just because you didn't want to cause an accident. And it was we might have 10 minutes in an area, and then we have to move on. So we took one light on a stick that my assistant had to stand there and hold.
Oh.
And he's either behind them or he's bouncing light off the ceiling.
Yeah.
Just trying so I get something I can work with. That was so. We had one trailing. Had to go and find the nearest plug socket for wherever we were working. I hope we didn't have too many trailing cables. To work around. But health and safety is an ongoing issue, and you do just have to be a little bit. You have to pay it some attention, but at the same time, it can't. You kind of have to work with it and around it.
Yeah, it's grey area.
They would argue it's not a grey area, but realistically, as long as you find a way to try and control it. Yeah. You're not doing anything stupid. Then you're probably okay. But it's always going to be a trailing cable somewhere.
Earlier on, I mentioned that you specialise in product and portrait photography.
Yeah.
Is there any reason why you're drawn more towards those than?
Can I be totally shameless? It's money. Well, it basically comes down to that I've got bills to pay.
Okay.
And these seem to be the areas that I can make the most money out of.
Yeah.
I do the work that pays the bills that keeps us ticking over.
Fair enough. Yeah.
It has been. There isn't. At the moment, I don't really have the time to do any sort of personal passion projects or anything like that. I just haven't got the time.
Yeah.
Clients keep me busy and out of trouble, and this place sucks all the money that it possibly can. So it's
busy life.
Busy, definitely. I mean, if I'm not shooting, somebody else is usually in here shooting, which is it's not because it's not just me here. You've got Connor and you've got the boys here, and then we run it as a hire studio, so there's a fair amount of churn of bodies through the door. From any day of the week, really.
I'm interested now to hear what kind of answer I get out of this next question.
Go on
then. When you shoot product or portraits, how do you choose to put focus on what model or what product, and how do you choose the story to tell with it?
Usually because the client tells me what they want.
Okay.
Or that's not entirely fair. We will have a discussion about what it is that they're trying to do with it, what they're trying to sell, the story they're trying to tell, if they're trying to sell a story, and we will tailor the shot or the shot list to that. So if we're shooting a particular product, that product is hero, and we will work to that. If it's sort of like the hospital stuff, we will have. There will be a mixture of things. It'll be so for the hospitals, I was typically doing a 2 or 3 people interactions, and so there will be a focus on an individual. We will then shoot that fairly shallow depth of field, so your eye is then drawn to that one individual who is in focus.
Yeah.
That's for 2 reasons. One, to make the viewer go to that subject, but also being able to then create depth in the shot by using somebody else in the foreground, like an art photo, like their shoulder in the foreground, creates a bit of depth and a bit of interest, but B, also gives my clients somewhere that they can put things like logos and copy, because these are really important things that we have to think about for product photography, for commercial photography. My image is not just the sole story, the whole sole elements. I'm going to hand my work off to a graphic designer who is then going to have to add a tagline, copy, logos, and I tend to try and give them areas that they will naturally gravitate towards. So logos usually end up in a corner somewhere. So if I give them a nice blurry color, a nice bit of color somewhere in a corner, that's somewhere they can put a logo. Or if there's a bit of copy that's got to go in, I give them a bit of space that they can do that with. If it's a really busy image with lots of stuff going on, it can be difficult to get those elements in. Yeah. So I'm trying to give them negative space around the subject of the image to do their job.
It's kind of like purposely cropping out a bit.
Yeah. I use people to create interesting shapes of colour, or something else in the shot. I mean, it could be if there's a couch in the background, that's going to be a nice solid block of colour. And if I throw that out of focus and I put it somewhere in the shot, or frame it into the shot somewhere, then it potentially could be used by a designer for something. Yeah. If I have lots of if everything's in focus and you've got loads of things going on, copy then becomes difficult to put down and be legible. You need to have some sort of nice, even tone that copy can sit on and be read across. Otherwise, it's the designers will hate you.
You briefly touched on this earlier, actually. How do you kind of approach starting projects, or when you start them at shoots, how do you start that?
Conversations.
Okay.
Either many conversations before a shoot, having video calls with clients, or could even potentially just in a coffee shop 10 minutes before we start the job, just to find out what it is they want to do, what they're trying to achieve. In an ideal world, it's planned out well in advance. They'll show me documents that might include how they use imagery. So they'll go. They call brand guidelines. So this is how we display our imagery. This is how we utilize our logos. Sorry. They might use. There'll be lots of information like colours and stuff like that as well. Usually, most companies have a document around that sort of idea. So they have a coherent brand identity, and then we have to then work images to that brand identity so that it feels like their work.
Yeah.
And that all comes from the conversation. So they'll supply this document, and we'll have the conversation about what they're trying to achieve. And that gives us a starting point. From that document, I'll know whether they want to be light, bright, airy images with lots of depth of field, or whether they want to be like razor thin on the focus, or if everything has to be in focus and actually they want to play with lots of shadows and depth and tone. So every client's different, and every client has a different need and how they want to present their work.
Yeah.
And I have to be flexible enough that I can deliver the images that they want in the way that's going to be suitable to their business, without it looking like somebody else's work.
Yeah, that's...
But it's conversations. It basically comes down to talking to your client and understanding what they are trying to achieve. And then that's usually a good starting point. And then, I mean, from there you've seen it. It's like we start taking pictures and the clients go, yes, I like that. No, I don't like that. Could we tweak that?
Yeah. Answered a lot of questions.
Sorry, there's everything.
No, that's a good thing. So what are some of the biggest challenges you've faced?
Monday to Friday. It's a challenging industry to be in.
Yeah.
I've been in this now for 24 years, and I've seen how many recessions have I been through now? 4, 5, easily. And yeah, every time the recession comes, or there's people panic, businesses close, work dries up. I've only had one situation in those 24 years where there's been so little work around, I've had to go and get a temporary job. And that was right at the beginning when I was a junior assistant. All the work dried up for 6 months. And I had to go and work in a camera shop for 6 months until work came back. And that was the danger of being freelance. So yeah, I mean, there's always that permanent state of panic of where the next job is coming from. But I think that's changing now. So I'm now considered quite old school.
Okay.
Which I don't know how that happened. But I work with some guys who work more on almost like a retainer basis with clients. So their clients pay them a regular fee each month. And then these guys just go off and they shoot content each month for them for like a flat fee.
Yeah.
So these companies are getting constant content generated, and the guys who are shooting it they know that they've got X number of money coming in each month from 3 or 4, 5 different clients. So they've got a bit more stability.
Yeah.
Whereas I will go from job to job, and I'm doing these 4 or 5 shoots this month. Then that's going to bring in X, and then next month might go completely to pot, and we might do half as much work. But the good months outweigh the bad months, and usually the good months will then cover the bad months. Also, it all evens out. Yeah, what other challenges have we had? Changing in technology.
Right. Yeah.
So, like you said earlier, I came into photography the end of film, the first time round. So watched film photography disappear within 18 months. Digital photography went from the first digital camera we used in a studio was a medium format digital back, and it had a whopping 6 megapixels. And it cost £20,000 to buy that one. And then so we were shooting that for a number of years.
Yeah.
And then CGI became a thing. And we watched CGI change the industry a bit. So clients started wanting everything to be completely computer generated. And that got a bit panicky for a while. People were very much like, do I just drop photography and do CGI? And it became, within a couple of years, we saw CGI sort of like, they went off the board with it a bit. And it became just part of the toolkit. So you still get a bit of CGI blended with photography, but it's nowhere near as it has to be. Not everything has to be CGI anymore. And now we're seeing the rise of AI. Yeah. And I'm hoping that kind of goes the same way. Everyone's raving about it at the moment and just seeing what they can do with it. But then hopefully it might just sort of settle down and become part of the general toolkit. That you blend in a bit here and there. But I think hopefully photography in itself will continue to be the key.
I think it does, and I think I've seen that already happening with people when they're doing the landscapes with AI, and people are like, but no one's gone and actually walked up that hill to take that picture. So there's no story behind it, so why would I want it?
Fair enough.
But yeah, that's any more challenge.
What, is that not enough?
We can switch to achievements if you want.
I mean, I'm very lucky in that I think there's a mindset to being self-employed. I've not known what my income's going to be from one month to the next for 24 years. And I've always been like, yeah, something will come along and save my ass in the last minute. And it does. Like a job will just appear out of nowhere and drop the needed money into the account. But some people can't work like that. Yeah. And they need that regular income thing.
That safety.
Yeah. And it's weird. It really is a mindset. I mean, I know lots of freelancers who don't do freelance anymore because they just want a regular paycheck.
Yeah.
And they can't live any other way. Whereas the best freelancers, I think, are the ones who are just like, we'll be all right. Something will happen. We'll be fine.
Having second thoughts now.
I'm not trying to scare you off. It's fine. Don't worry.
I've heard so much. Has Studio 88 changed the way you work in any way? No,
I don't think it has. So Studio 88 came about because I needed somewhere to do my job.
Right.
I was working out of another studio for somebody else, and I had a regular client who I kept having to set stuff up and then strip it back down again, move it to another studio just to be out of their way. So it got to the point where I was like, okay, I will just go and get myself a little studio where I can leave this job permanently set up. And yeah, so I ended up with a little tiny workshop here in Wickham, just primarily to do this one job.
Okay.
And that job didn't last much longer. The client ended up disappearing off. But I ended up with a little studio. I was like, well, this works for me. I can do most of my work here.
Yeah.
And what I'll do is I'll just set it up around my needs. And if that works for other people, then that's cool. And they can hire it and they can use it to do their job. And I'll get them to effectively pay the rent on the building for me through hire. Because I'm not shooting 5 days a week.
Yeah.
I'm shooting 2, maybe 3 on a good week. And the rest of the time it's standing empty. So other photographers may as well use it. And then they end up covering your rent for you and the lecky. And then it just sort of grew from there. And I've always done it as I designed it around my needs initially. So we've just grown the studio a bit bigger and bigger and bigger. But it's always been about the work that I do or the work that we do. And then if that suits other people, then that's cool. And it seems to work. So
yeah, no, it's a pretty solid way of doing it.
Rather than trying to please people, we're just doing it for ourselves, and then hopefully other people appreciate it.
They certainly do.
They seem to.
What advice would you give to emerging photographers trying to find their place?
Yeah, don't become a gardener. No, that's not fair. That's not. That's always been the advice any photographer's ever given to anyone else. The industry has changed so much in the time I've been in it. The advice I would have given at the beginning, and even fairly recently, would be don't worry about what you're doing at college or university. The really important thing was to get out there and get assisting, and then learn from other photographers. It's the hardest bit is that initial get started. Right. Getting in the door at a studio or with a photographer, because you know nothing. As far as they're concerned, you know nothing. Your basic job at that point is to make tea and sweep up, and not get in the way. Yeah. but then gradually you'll see what they're doing and watch what they're doing, and you'll get to learn where everything is, and then you could become useful. And then by being in that room with that photographer, they typically have other photographer friends or colleagues, and then you'll get to meet them, and then you hand them a business card, physical business cards, and then you go and assist them for a bit, and before you know it, you've got a client base of 4, 5, 6 photographers that you work with regularly, who then give you enough work that you can do that assisting work basically full time for a couple of years. So you're then learning from all these different photographers, picking and choosing the bits that you like, working out where you fit best into the industry. So like I worked with a guy who did car photography, product photography. I worked with a guy who did music and celebrity portraits. I've worked with guys who do all sorts of stuff, and I just got to learn what I liked, what I didn't like. If I worked with guys who did the same sort of thing, I would then go, well, I like the way they did that, but I didn't like the way they did that bit. So I could then I became like an amalgam of all the best bits of them, but not a carbon copy of any one particular photographer. And that would I think that's still the best way. It's getting harder to get those assisting jobs because budgets are smaller. Profit is definitely lower, and the kit that we're using requires less assistance.
Yeah.
So some of my first work as an assistant was to go, if we were doing a car shoot, I had to go around and adjust the powers and all the lighting. As the photographer would stand, he'd be standing at camera and go, can you take half a stop out of the light over there, 3/3 of a stop out of that one, half a stop out of that one. So I'd be running around just adjusting powers, which can now all be done from the trigger on the camera. So that job doesn't actually exist anymore.
Yeah.
So that on that gig, I may not have had 5 days work. I might only ended up with a couple. So it's the technology getting better is making less work for an assistant.
Yeah.
They're still, don't get me wrong, they're still really invaluable. We just tend to use them more on location shoots now because it is transporting 50, 60, 80 kilos of equipment from one location to another, and you just want somebody who is less physically broken to help you move stuff, and then set up all the lighting, set up all the cameras and tripods and laptops.
Yeah, just doing all the labour.
While you're having those conversations with the clients that I was talking about earlier. So yeah, that's where assistants come in. Is really, I think it's more location work these days.
Right.
Or if you're a jobbing photographer going from studio to studio, you might use an assistant to help you load your car in the morning, to then go to your studio for that day, and then set up, and then strip it all down and go home again.
Yeah.
As somebody who has a studio constantly set up, I don't really use a whole lot of assistants these days. It's becoming a lot less. Yeah. The other option, I guess, is, I mean, you haven't. Did you meet Connor when you were here last?
Briefly, I think.
So he didn't do assisting. He just went straight out from. I think he dropped out of university and just decided to set up a business doing photography. And they've been at it now for 5 years. Nice. And are doing content creation, and they have very little backup experience from working with others, but they've just muddled through and worked it out as they go.
Swinged it.
Yeah, and it's worked for them.
Yeah.
So there are multiple ways into it now. You just got to be a bit focused and a bit. This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I'm just get stuck in and a bit ballsy about it.
Yeah, that's
sorry.
It's becoming more and more apparent, I'd say. What do you think needs to be changed in the industry?
That's a really good question, and honestly, if I knew the answer to that, I think we would all be in a better place. It's things constantly change in the industry. It's never going to settle down. I mean, there's certain things I see on social media today, the same things that we were saying 20 years ago. Like the clients are going to client. Would you work? I've got no budget.
Yeah.
Will you work for free? Will you? It'll look great in your book. It will be great exposure. Those things that are still happening today were happening 20 years ago. Clients were always going to take the mick to try and get a freebie out of you. Oh yeah, what was the other one? If you do this one, there's loads more of this coming up.
Oh.
Absolute rubbish. We all get to the point where we've heard these so many times that we know not to believe it. So I don't know how we would get around. I mean, I think these people, those sort of people, will always try and exploit young, up and coming photographers.
Yeah.
Because they know they can get away with paying them next to nothing. Yeah. There's a certain amount of exploitation of younger people by a certain amount of clients.
It's like, you don't know what you're doing yet, so
I don't have to pay you very well or at all, and I can just tell you it's going to look great in your portfolio and you'll get you other work, and it probably won't. You need, I think more mentoring might be a good idea.
Yeah.
But that kind of comes off the back of assisting. If you're working for other people, you can sort of watch how they're doing business, and you'll see them get the jobs. Get people saying to them, "Oh, it'll be great for your portfolio," and see how they deal with it. So maybe more mentoring would be good.
It's kind of like a cycle then, because when you said you started assisting, it was for the digital kind of, but now it could be more for like content creation.
Yeah, I mean, when I started, I was a photographer. I was a photographic assistant. Now there is definite blending between photo, video. Clients want a bit of video thrown into a shoot. So I'm not a videographer. I will give it a go, but I'm very much not a videographer. So I prefer to bring in the right people for that job.
Yeah.
Whether that's a junior who's maybe more savvy with social media content production, to stand there and literally film stuff with a phone, to create what do they call it? Is it user-generated content? I think that's the preferred term these days for stuff shot on a phone that looks a bit crap. Because it looks like it's been
a name.
It's user-generated content. With this whole thing with social media where they've looked at like professional stuff that we produce, and they found that it doesn't get the same response on social media to stuff that is generated by somebody that people think is real.
Okay.
Like an actual customer.
Yeah.
So what marketing agencies and PR agencies will do is they will film stuff on their phone like they are a customer. So they're just creating content that's a bit crap, specifically to make it look like it is generated by somebody who's actually using the product. So it's still effectively real, it's created content, but it's meant to look a bit more like somebody shot it on their phone using it.
Just pay a stranger to take a quick video.
The food shoot that we did in January, February. There was myself, a food stylist, an assistant, a chef, and then 2 members of the PR team. One to help work with me as an art director, and the other one, so we would shoot a plate of food, and then as soon as we were done with it, we'd hand it off to the other person in the PR team who was the social media person. Right. They would take the plate away, and then they would shoot reels with that plate of food as well. So they get 2 types of content over. They get the polished stuff that we shoot, and they get stuff which might be lit by strip lights or by daylight. And it has a very different look and feel, and we'll get different interaction from people. Different people will react differently to it. So yeah. Does that answer that question? I don't know.
It more puts a light kind of what to expect when going onto a job. But yeah, no, it does. Yeah.
Cool.
We're done. That's
it. Fantastic.
Everything I've got.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on. It's been lovely hearing you talk and
it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
About everything. This has been InFocus. You can watch this and upcoming videos on YouTube or Spotify. And go follow our socials on Instagram or Facebook at InFocus LMCB.